In this video, I am going to demonstrate how to use the Interact software, and I will also show how to use the bayesact software and how the two are related. In particular, I'll demonstrate how bayesact can be used to do the same simulations as Interact. So, what we're going to do is we're going to do a simple simulation of a student interacting with a tutor in Interact and in bayesact. I'll first of all demonstrate the Interact version, and I'll get that started. So we've downloaded the Interact software, and I'm going to use applet viewer to view the Java applet. So I'll start that up, but you can use any applet viewer you like to see it and play with the Interact software. Okay, so we start up the Interact software and we get a window that looks like this. I'm first of all going to go and set a few options here. Select options. This search cutoff distance should be increased so that we can see all possible behaviors at each step along the way for the two interactants. I also am going to want to write out the fundamentals and impressions to the Java console, as well as the deflections. There are a number of other things you can write out as well if you are interested in those. Having done that, I go up here and we are going to define our interactants. And so I will be using a simple interaction between a tutor and a student. So the tutor will be person 1. So we'll give him a name. We can pick any name we want. We'll call him Tom Tutor, and we'll make him male number 3. So that's this guy, this bald guy here. So he looks a little bit older. Person 2 is going to be a student, so we'll call him Sam Student, and we'll make him this male face over here so that we can recognize the difference between the student and the tutor when we do the simulation. The next thing we need to do is define the situation. We will be doing this from the perspective of Tom Tutor. So for viewer Tom Tutor is a tutor. So importantly, the tutor and the student both agree on their respective roles. For viewer Tom Tutor, Sam Student is a student. Okay, having done that, we can now go and try to define some events. Now somebody is going to have to act first, and we'll say that Tom Tutor is going to be the first actor, and Tom Tutor will choose an action and that will act upon Sam Student, who in this case is known as the object or the object person. This is the agent upon whom the action is being done. These two, Tom and Sam, will exchange roles as they do an interaction. The first guy to act is Tom Tutor. He will act upon Sam Student. The next iteration will be Sam Student acting upon Tom Tutor. So in order to figure out what Tom Tutor will do first, we have to go to Feeling Effects. And we will pick the tutor as the actor here and get his characteristic emotions. And then we go to the object, and that is student. Find student down here and get his characteristic emotion, and we compute the solution, and we see that the deflection minimizing first action for Tom Tutor is to apologize to Sam Student. These other actions here, confer with, confide in, are all very similar in the affective space to apologize to. So those could be used as well. But we'll go with the deflection minimizing action, which is apologize to. So we'll go back to define events, and we'll say that Tom Tutor is going to apologize to Sam Student. And then we go to analyze events, and we can first of all set this up to be advanced functions, so we see a little bit more of what's going on. And we will click on this, and this will create the first action. So Tom Tutor has apologized to Sam Student. We can see a number of different things happening. These are the next possible, the deflection minimizing behavior for Tom Tutor, were he to act again right away, would be to confide in Sam Student. And the deflection minimizing action for Sam Student, were he to act next, would be to answer. So all that's happened so far is Tom Tutor has apologized to Sam Student, and if we look here at the Java console, we see a number of different things. First of all, the actor fundamental, 1.5, 1.45, minus 0.8. These are the fundamental sentiments of a tutor. And the object person fundamental is 1.49, 0.31, 0.75. Those are the fundamental sentiments of a student. Tom Tutor has apologized to Sam Student, and we get the transient outcomes of 1.69, 1.35, minus 0.23 for Tom Tutor, and 1.25, 0.1, 0.5 for Sam Student. And the deflection between those transient outcomes and the fundamentals is very small, or 0.3. Now, that is the first action in Interact. Now I'm going to demonstrate how we do this as well in bayesact. So we're going to run bayestact-interact.py, Python, and we're going to use Python 2.6 in order to do this, and we'll do this on the command line. Now I have already modified Bayesact Interactive, some of the parameters in there, so that the simulation will follow the way that Interact does things as closely as possible. And if you read the README, you can see exactly what are the parameter settings that you need in order to make this work. So we'll start this up, and this will simulate a student and a tutor interacting with one another. And I will be using many samples to do this, so the simulation may proceed quite slowly. We need lots of samples in order to precisely simulate the actions of Interact. And so we have, I believe, 10,000 samples being used in this simulation. Here's the number of samples. Okay, so we have, again, here our fundamentals for the tutor, 1.5, 1.45, minus 0.18, and for the student, 1.49, 0.31, 0.75, and bayesact computes the optimal action for the agent, which has this EPA signature, 1.78, 1.21, minus 0.17, and the closest label in the database is to confide in. This is something quite close to apologize to. So we will instead take exactly the action apologize to, because that's the one that we use in Interact. And we can see what happens. So here's the action that the agent takes is 1.84, 1.17, and minus 0.40. And it will generate the next state. Right now, that's what it's doing. Because it's using 10,000 samples, it's going to take it quite a bit of time. There we go. And we have our transient outcomes of 1.68, 1.35, minus 0.23, which we can see is very close to what we get for the Interact down here, 1.69, 1.35, minus 0.23. Similarly, for the transient outcome of the student identity, 1.25, 0.09, 0.48 is very similar to that in Interact, 1.25, 0.10, and 0.49. Bayesact then says that the student should do an action which is has this EPA value 1.9, 0.39, 0.36, which is close to chit-chat with or answer or show something to. If we look over here at interact, it is suggesting the exact same things for the deflection minimizing action for the student. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll make Sam student do the action answer. We see that this increases deflection to about 0.8, which is still very, very low. And the next best action for Tom Tutor will be to soothe Sam student. We can also see down here that the actor transient outcomes 1.36, 0.27, and 0.44. In this case, the actor is Sam student. So if we do the same action up here to answer, again, this will take a little while because there's 10,000 samples. But one thing that we will notice is that in bayesact, the agent is always the actor, the original actor, so Tom Tutor in this case, and the client, as it's called in bayesact, is always the student. So these will not exchange roles every time, even though the dynamics of the fundamental and transient sentiments are switching every time in bayesact as they are in interact. So what we get out here is a fundamental transient outcome of the identity of Tom Tutor, which is 1.28, 0.8, minus 0.1. And we see that that's the same as the one down here, which is the object person transient outcome. So Tom Tutor is the agent that is being acted upon, so he is the object person. Similarly, up here we have the transient outcomes for transient impressions for the identity of Sam student, 1.35, 0.25, 0.44, which is relatively close to this one here, 1.36, 0.27, 0.44. The best action suggested for Tom Tutor is to apologize to Sam student. And over here we see that the best actions are to soothe, which is going to be fairly close to apologize to. So we'll make Tom Tutor do the action soothe, and we'll make Tom Tutor do the action soothe here as well. And we see that we wind up with a transient impression of Tom Tutor 1.81 minus 0.2, which is pretty much the same as what interact gives, 1.81 and minus 0.2. Similarly, 1.2, 0.15, 0.34, 1.25, 0.16, 0.34. Very, very similar. And a deflection of 0.8 in bayesact, in interact, and a deflection of 0.8 in bayesact, sorry. Okay, now let's make Sam student do something a little bit unusual. And what I'll do is I will find an action that will create some kind of deflection so that we can see a little bit what's going on if something goes wrong. So let's say that Sam student is going to, let's see what's the one that I used before, gawk at Tom Tutor. So if Sam student decides to gawk at Tom Tutor, the deflection goes up to 4.1, and Tom Tutor will have to do some reparative actions in order to handle this. And we see that the transient outcomes now change quite a bit. For Sam student, we're down to 0.16 minus 0.08 and 0.38. If we make gawk at the next action in bayesact, we should see very similar outcomes. So here we see the deflection has gone up to 4.3, which is roughly the same. Oops, let's start that over again. Roughly the same as in bayesact, so 4.1 over here, 4.3 over here. And we can see the transient outcomes for student-tutor is 0.97, 0.14, minus 0.24, which is the same as down here in interact. And minus, 0.1, minus 0.19, and 0.36 is somewhat the same as what we get out of here. So this is, I'm going to stop the simulation there. This is as pretty much as close as we can get with a reasonable number of samples in bayesact to what interact does. In the next